Thank you so much for coming. I'm Charlotte. Nice to meet you.
Mickey.
Nice to meet you, Mickey.
I'm Jackie.
Nice to meet you, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie. I'm Anna.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Mickey. Nice to meet you.
So welcome, and we'd like to thank you both for coming here today. As you know, we're here because both of you have agreed that you'd like to try mediation and try to reach an agreement that works for both of you. So we just like to start off with that shared goal in mind. I'd like to also start off with a reminder of what our role is as the mediators. We're not here in the capacity of judges or to decide one way or another. We're here to help facilitate the discussion between the two of you and also guide you through the process of reaching a solution that works for both of you. So based on our understanding of the situation, we thought that the following process would be very helpful to the discussion today. So first we'll ask each of you to tell us about what the situation has been like from your perspective. And the goal here is just to give you a chance to tell us everything you feel is important to resolving this issue. And the goal here is that you can tell us what you feel and tell us what you'd like us to know. After that, you'll have an opportunity to talk to each other about what you've been experiencing and what your concerns are. And then we can start working on figuring out a solution that both of you can agree on. Of course, this process is flexible, so we don't necessarily have to follow that structure step by step. If at any point you feel like you'd like to take a break, just let us know. And if there's anything that you'd like to talk with us in private about, you can also let us know, whether it's an issue that you're concerned with or anything that comes to mind that you'd like to talk about with us in private. You can just let us know and we can certainly do that. I would also like to emphasize that this process is voluntary throughout, so you do have the option of leaving if you feel like the process isn't working out for you. And as well, any agreement that you reach will be agreed upon by both of you together voluntarily.
So during this mediation, I'm just going to write out 2 ground rules we'll be following. The first is that you don't interrupt each other, even if you don't agree with or dislike what the other person is saying. Both of you will have the opportunity to voice your perspectives, and we'll get to hear from everyone. So the first one is, don't interrupt. And the second is that you agree to treat each other respectfully, which includes listening to each other when the other one is speaking, keeping in mind that both of you have come here with the intention of resolving this conflict. Do you both agree to these ground rules? Mm-hmm. Are there any you would like to add? Cell phones, anything like that? Okay, perfect. So we'd also like you to know that everything that is said here will be kept strictly confidential. We might take a few notes ourselves to help us keep track, but they won't be shared anywhere else. And the only exceptions are if we learn that a child is at risk or there are threats of harm to yourself or other people. Finally, we would also like to make sure that this is an accessible mediation process for the both of you. So if there are any particular accommodations that you might request, like to ask us to repeat what we said or to speak slower or interpretation services or for breaks, we will do our best to arrange for those, so just let us know. And we understand that you've both set aside 45 minutes for this mediation. Is that still fine? Mm-hmm. Perfect. Before we begin, are there any questions about anything we've said? Okay, perfect.
Okay. So let's begin with each of you telling us what the situation has been from your perspective. So why don't we begin with you, Jackie, on my left, and we'll go in a clockwise order. So Jackie, can you tell us what has happened?
Well, I think you got some of the information in the letters that preceded this mediation with the data, but to say it shortly, hopefully not too long, shortly, I quit a production company that I was employed with in New York, and it was a large production company. The reason being that for me, within reason, I'm not only looking for monetary compensation, but I wanted to be involved in an artistic production company that I respected. And Peter George, who was the original person in my position was somebody that was really world renowned. His capability was just phenomenal, and everybody in this milieu knew him and respected his work, and it was a great thrill for me to be able to, unfortunately, because he passed, to be able to follow in his footsteps was an honor. And so I took a lot less money than I was making at the time, but I was hoping that down the line, things would even out. But regardless, I was very happy with doing this type of work under the umbrella of Peter George kind of thing. And at that time, Dance Innovation really did focus on his work and his kind of guidance and his strategic future outlook. And that's what I had. That was what I was working under. That's how I had been trained, and that's how my experience had been as a choreographer and as an actual dancer myself. And then when I got into more of the artistic directorship, I followed his guidance, even though I never really met him personally. I did follow his leadership, if you like. And everything was fine. There were no problems. The budgets for each production, I provided an estimate. I'd written an estimate of the amount of monies that I would need, but those were estimates. And within each of those sort of requests for proposal of budgets, there was a line that said in small print, plus or minus, depending on how things worked out, to interact with Dance Innovation and get an okay, which I did. So the executive committee, who are Mickey's relatives, they are not artistic, they are not choreographers, regardless, they are the executive committee. I did get their okay. And the over amounts of the original budgets were so minuscule compared to the income generated by these wonderful productions, and it's not very humble of me to say, but they were really well received in the community. So it was a small variation, but there was a little bit of an over the expected budget, but it was approved, first of all, and it was minor. The recognition in the world of dance innovations based on these two productions that have gone through is just speaks for itself. They're written about in lots and lots of trade papers and reviews and journals related to dance and so on. So I have brought in a tremendous amount of positive status in the community, in this community, to the company, but they decided that they are now going in the direction of dollars and cents, primarily, not only primarily. And so I have heard from his executive assistant, who inadvertently informed me that they have already prepared contract papers for a new artistic director who will be paid 1/3 of what I'm being paid. And that's the bottom line. During the course of this negotiation, obviously, with this new person, I have been subjected to ridicule, to insult in public, in hallways, in front of my peers, in front of staff, in front of anyone and everyone who happens to be around. I've never received a formal performance appraisal, which is in my contract to receive. And obviously the effect to me emotionally has been devastating. My colitis, which I informed Dance Innovation about when I was hired, has just gone through the roof. My medication has escalated. I'm now seeing a psychiatrist therapist because of this emotional issue with all of this insult and destruction of my previous really perfect history in this type of work has been really sort of gone up in flames. And so emotionally, physically, and to my personal life, it's been absolutely a knife in everything, and it's all shattered. At this point, I can't even afford, because of all the costs of these therapies and so on, and medication, which are not covered by the health benefits. Some things are, but not everything. I don't have any actual liquid money. I don't even have the money to pay for my portion of the rent. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's absolutely impacted everything, and my future employment is also impacted because people now look at me very differently. So, yeah, everything. There's nothing, unfortunately, I can say is good. And you know what, from my point of view, if I was an employer and I didn't like someone's work, I would take them aside in a private space and tell them, you know what, the contract says 6 months, so assume that you're now being given notice of 6 months. Privately and without public, announcement, clear announcement that you are no longer wanted here. That's what I think would have been professional, and I think that would be dignified. I wouldn't have liked it. No one likes to be told that you're not wanted, but at least I would have maintained my professional standing and my dignity, my respect. I don't know if I can find any other work now.
So it sounds like you would have appreciated more communication towards the end of your employment in terms of feedback, and you would have appreciated that kind of communication rather than what had happened.
Well, private, kind of professional intercourse, if you like, rather than a public, humiliation, public flogging. And if you're seeing it, which I'm sure will be verbalized, if you're seeing that the quality of my work is going down, why not let me know? Why not give me the performance appraisals as you're required to? Mm-hmm. Why make it obvious that the reason you're letting me go is because you want to save money now? Mm-hmm. And because I have set Dance Innovations on such a solid forward grounding that I assume the feeling is that it can sort of post on its own because of what I've put in place. And they can get that posting from someone cheaper than I am.
So, you've listed several of your experiences and concerns involving, a focus on budget as opposed to recognition of the works that you brought, the toll it's taken on your personal life, and worries about future employment given how the communication of your unemployment was handed to you. Are there any other factors that are concerning to you other than what I've said?
Not really. We can get into, but that'll be later, I'm sure. But basically, the production ensemble, which by contract is Dance Innovations, it's a masterpiece. It should be finished in a respectful, in a professional, in an appropriate manner, rather than sort of ripped off the production line, 2/3 finished, and say we're putting it through because we want to make some money. That indicates, or should indicate to anyone, that if you're really interested in quality and income, then you have to allow the process to finish and then put it into production, and you will be rewarded with huge income, which is what the other two of my creations did, in fact.
Okay. Thank you. We understand your concerns. Did you want to?
So, thank you so much, Jackie. That really helped us understand what is a concern to you. Mickey, can you tell us what the situation has been from your perspective?
Yeah, Dance Innovation, it's our company mandate to find new works. It's our company mandate to foster the up-and-coming artists in the industry, and that's something that we take on that role and that responsibility in the industry. While Jackie is a very renowned and successful and dignified artist in the industry, that's why we brought her on, because she has such a extensive resume and a very good knowledge of how the industry works, and we respect her a lot for her art. We thought that she'd be a great addition to Dance Innovation, and she was for a time. We thought things were going well when we produced her first 2 short works. But it was clear to her from the very beginning that we want new works. That we had a small budget. We were a small company. We have our own reputation to uphold. People see us as an innovator and as a company that pushes the envelope. They expect us to do well. And it was clear to her at the beginning that these are the expectations of her, to foster growth with the new choreographers and new dancers and new artists, and they could rely on us for the help. We found that with her work ensemble, that was not the case. That she focused a lot of company resources and time on revising this work that she attached her own name to, that it was something that she created. And while we respect her work, we found that there was no work being done with the choreographers. Whether or not she actually fostered them is irrelevant to the fact that she never gave them the opportunity to make their own work. It was all about hers. And it seems that she doesn't feel that she was given the proper notice, but we had many conversations about revising her strategies, and nothing changed. She continued to pour money and time into Ensemble, even though we've considered it finished long ago. But she thinks it's still incomplete, and we disagree strongly. We think it's been ready, and we don't want to waste any more time or money on revising it. So we thought it would be best to part ways with her, as much as we do want to keep a good relationship with her, because we respect her and respect her work. We don't find that her interests align with ours anymore, and that maybe it was never the right position for her as artistic director. That's a big responsibility. The role of the artistic director is not only to be an artist, but to also keep in mind that the company has its own values that need to be adhered to, which we find that she did not fulfill.
So it sounds like bringing Jackie onto your team, you recognize that she was very renowned and you respected her work. However, you did have some concerns about being able to maintain the vision that your company has, which is to support you and upcoming choreographers. And you felt like those interests that your company had might not have aligned with Jackie's own vision of what her work should be. Okay.
And as well, you were a small company, you had a reputation as an innovator. You had to watch out for your time and resources and make sure that those were going towards your mandate. Is that a correct statement? Okay, wonderful. So I think we have gotten information from both of you. So I think we've already summarized both of what they've said.
Is there anything that you'd like to add to what we've said about what you've shared? Or was that an accurate portrayal?
Yeah, I just want to stress that there's a lot at stake with her position, and there's a lot at stake with how this was resolved. A lot of our budget comes from not just the revenue, which I think is she credits too much to her own work. We also have some notoriety, which brings us our own revenue in. As much as we respect that she's great at what she does, our own revenue doesn't pay for all the work that we produce. We rely heavily on grants and sponsors and donors, and a lot of these people expect us to fulfill our mandate. They're given to us with the condition that we fulfill our duties to bring new works to the table. So it's not just about reputation or dignity on the line here, it's also about our capability to survive as a company. Because without these grants, we can't do the work that we do, and I wouldn't be able to pay my rent either. So
thank you for bringing that to our attention.
That was really helpful. Why don't we take a brief break, a couple of minutes, and then we can reconvene later.
Feel free to get some refreshments,
get some water. Thank you.
Okay, so a lot was said.
Yeah.
Communication for both of them is clearly very important. Yeah.
It's like the resources. They also have different opinions on what it means to complete the work. Like it feels like Jackie's very much emphasizing perfecting her work and keeping that kind of artistic integrity. Whereas Dance Innovation, Mickey mentioned, they felt like it was ready like long ago at a very much earlier stage.
Also, there's like a disconnect with how they see the other. Like he sees it as she was joining the company as like a talented person, but they already had their own reputation and they have to keep up that reputation. Whereas she sees them as, you have so many resources, you should support me. I left this company for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can resolve that or if we can just minimize that difference.
She thinks she brought a lot of recognition to the company, whereas he thought like they made it clear to her that they were going to support you artist.
Yeah.
And instead of like funneling so many resources to her works and stuff, like it's more of a focus on you.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Okay, so going forward, phase 2. Okay, we're going to. I don't know if these questions make prepared work anymore.
yeah,
Like they seem juvenile compared to what they shared with us.
yeah.
Because she's already talked about why she like working for Peter George. That's what excited her about joining the company.
So yeah, now we have to figure out what they want from, like, what they want out of this solution, right? Like, does she still want to work at Dance Innovation? Like, is that what she wants? Like, what does Mickey want? Like, things like that.
What if we began by welcoming them back and then caucusing and seeing what they want? I think that would be a good move.
Yeah, because right now we don't have an idea of
Yeah.
what she wants or what.
And then we'll just give them an opportunity to say to each other their perspective of the issues and what they want. And then during the caucus, we can tell them that you're going to have an opportunity to speak with them. You can speak to the issues or what you'd like to get out of them, but this is voluntary, so it'll be up to them whether they agree or not.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll start with the caucus, then let them speak to each other, and then we'll just at the end of that, maybe we can just say, do you, okay, so now we're going to move into the third phase, which is an agreement, but it really depends on what they say during caucus.
Right. So wait, so we caucus with them, and then do they talk to each other,
Yeah.
and then we move to phase
Yeah.
3? Okay.
I don't know if we should say anything at the end of that, like, do you feel like, I don't know if it's patronizing, they're obviously very, well-spoken, so I don't know if it's patronizing to be like, do you have anything else you want to say? Have you got everything off your chest? We can say, like, is there anything else you'd like to add,
Like
during after they've spoken to each other?
No, I think once
Okay.
they speak to each other, I think it'll be sufficient.
Sure. Ready to resume?
like, yeah. Okay.
So you'll welcome back from the break, and then.
Or should I just ask one of them to come back in, or both of them, and then we'll say caucus?
Maybe we'll invite them both in, and then tell them that what's going to happen, so you can explain that we're going to caucus with you, learn a bit more about what you'd like out of this process, and then you'll have the chance to speak with each other. So beginning with.
Okay. This is still recording.
Yeah.
Hi. So, I'd like to welcome you back into the room.
Hope you're a little refreshed.
So what we'd like to do next is just to caucus for a little bit with each of you individually, just so we can learn what you'd like from this process. And then after that, we can go forward with having a discussion together.
Mhm.
Okay.
And in that second part of the discussion, we'll encourage you to speak to each other about what you'd like out of this process. So we'll begin with the caucus, and then we'll move to discussion. I guess we'll start in the same order that we've been going. So, Mickey, if you don't mind stepping out for a minute, we'll caucus with you shortly. Thank you. So, Jackie, we've heard about the importance of your creative integrity as an artist and giving your latest work the recognition as well as the respect that it deserves. But we'd like to ask now what you'd like to see out of this process. What kinds of things you'd like Mickey to agree to, if possible.
Well, I think I alluded to some in terms of money, right? I want to be paid out on my contract, and I want the benefits that are accruing to that time frame to be instated or reinstated, rather, because they were cut off literally from 1 minute to the next. And I'd like, because of what I've told you, which I won't repeat, a letter of reference and a strong letter, not one of these sort of nebulous letters. I'd like a strong letter of reference, and for my own personal, if you like, satisfaction, my own personal, dignity, I'd like a letter of apology for insulting me and insulting my abilities, and actually for not providing me with the respect that anyone deserves, much less an employee, a professional, anyone. When you destroy people in public, you have to make amends for that, and that's what I'm looking for. I will not share that with anyone, but I certainly would like that because I was destroyed publicly. I'd like kind of a refutation of that in a letter form. It means nothing. It will practically have no effect other than for my, if you like, my emotional re-engagement effect.
Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know it's not easy to talk about these things, but I think this will really help us suss out if there's a possibility to mediate. So just to restate what you've said, you'd like to be paid out on the remainder of the contract. You'd like the benefits in the contract reinstated. A strong letter of reference alluding to your abilities and your professionalism. An apology letter for insulting you as a professional as well as a person, which you will agree to keep confidential to really make amends for how you were treated publicly as a professional. Okay, do you have anything you'd like to add or ask about?
No, I think that helps us understand what you'd like to see out of this process.
You recognize, I'm sorry to interrupt you, recognize that my work ensemble will be produced in a way that is counter to what it should be and with my name attached to it, so that impacts my future, even though I have no clue whether I will ever get another piece of production to do based on what has been known due to this public flogging of myself. So I have no idea whether I will be employable, but regardless, this production, which is going to be mediocre at best, is going to have my name attached to it, which will further negatively impact my ability to potentially work in this field again.
I see. So there's two options that I see coming out of this. You can let me know what you think of them. One is for Dance Innovation to credit you with the work and thus maybe bolster your reputation so that you can find employment in this field again. But if you would rather your name not be attached to ensemble, perhaps if the other side is willing, there could be an opportunity to finish that work on terms you both agree to, but that would really be pending if the other side is willing.
Right, so I have thought about that, and yes, I wouldn't mind finishing it based on a single contract, based on further an agreement, which probably the other side will not be liking my details of the agreement, because I will be wanting to be paid not the way my salary was paid, which is way under market value, but to be paid at market value, because I know what the income, the gross income will be to Dance Innovations based on this very, very large scale production that I've 2/3 created.
Understood. I'm just curious about how important getting that salary is to you, because it also seems important to Mickey that he stays within the budget based on what he said. So,
Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer, and you're not probably going to come to a good, fruitful outcome in terms of that. That's why part of my remuneration is personal injury damages, liability damages, because of this type of thing. You will not get the type of agreement from him, which I understand. He's a businessman. He's not an artist. So, if I'm asking for basically 4 times the rate that my contract is paying currently to finish ensemble, which will probably take me about a month and a half, but regardless, the rate would be 4 times the rate. If he doesn't agree to it, he doesn't agree to it.
Okay, so
I'm just going to have to take that hit, and that's why I expect substantial liability damages based on what's going to happen, because this production is going to be a fiasco.
Speaking of damages, so what I'm hearing you say is that if that contract can't be agreed to, you would rather go to court and seek those damages. Am I understanding that correctly?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not averse to going to court, simply because, to be honest, my lawyer is working on a contingency basis. So if I receive nothing, then unfortunately neither will she, pretty much. On the other hand, at this point, I don't have any income, I don't have any future, I don't have anything, so I don't have much to lose, because it's not like there's something that I'm needing to finish this and then get to that. I don't. So I have no problem. My contract was broken in multiple places. I have numerous people who, if they're brought to testify in a court under oath, will have to say the truth. I was mentoring them. They weren't capable of producing anything that would be acceptable to any reasonable, even beginning standard artistic production. So I don't have any problem with that. I'd like to settle, but I'm not going to settle at a loss for myself.
Understood. The court process is very lengthy and stressful, as your lawyers probably advise you, but what we're here to do right now is to see what your best alternative is, and if your bottom line truly is, getting this contract, and otherwise it would be more beneficial in your opinion, to go to court, we'd like to suss that out just to make sure that we've done everything we can for you before that possibility arises. Because once you start, you won't be able to get out of it until it's over. And it's really uncertain who will really win in these cases.
Right.
So am I understanding correctly that, sorry to repeat again, but that this contract would be very important, receiving 4 times the amount of your other contract and 1.5 months of finishing that work? That would be your bottom line.
Well, along with the other 3 stipulations. Yes, right.
Understood. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing
Well,
that with
again, just to sort of underscore, I don't have a place of residence after 2 weeks because I don't have any money to pay for my share. And my roommate, who is also struggling, she can't be expected to pay my share because she doesn't have the means, and I don't do that to people. So I'm basically going to be either on the street or trying to find some sort of homeless shelter.
Understood. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Anything? Yeah, so it's important that we do figure out a solution to this before it reaches that stage 2 weeks from now. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yes, we will.
Would you like me to go?
Yes, we're going to call this with Nikki now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for waiting. We just wanted to meet with you to get an idea of what you'd like to see coming out from this process. What are your expectations? What would you like to see?
I know she wants some monetary compensation for damages. I frankly cannot afford that, and I don't think it's appropriate. So, just to be blunt, I don't want to pay anything to her damages. I do want, not that I think that it's under discussion or that it is even a relevant point for her to make, but an ensemble, the show that she worked on extensively, belongs to Dance Innovation, and I need it to be in my season. I can't replace it at this point. It's too late, and I don't have the money to replace it either. So I need ensemble to be completely within my own rights and to be in my season.
When are you aiming to produce that season?
It's in our current season, so we have our 2 shows that we've produced, and the next show is ensemble, and it's only a couple months away.
Okay.
I don't have time to workshop or create a new one, and I've already spent all this money and time into this one, which belongs to us anyway. So I know she feels it's incomplete, but it needs to go on.
Just a question on that. So have you completed it already within your company or is that still in the process?
Other than the rehearsals continuing with her absence, even given her absence, no changes have been made. We don't think that it needs to be changed. The artistic committee of the company and I, we all agree that it's already finished.
Okay.
We know she disagrees, but in our perspective, it's ready to be performed. There's nothing left to do. I mean, she's reworked it several times, but we think that it's finished already.
So what I'm hearing is that you think that damages are inappropriate. You need and want Ensemble to be completely within your right, as it's already very close to production and that it's already finished. I do have a question about the damages, but before that, is there anything else you'd like to assert or discuss?
No, I think that's basically it. I just know that the reputation of the company is riding on how this goes.
Right.
If she's very public and vocal about what she perceives as mistreatment, it can have some blowback to our reputation.
Yes.
So I want to contain that.
So I see that as a common goal between maintaining the reputation of the company as well as damages, because you probably don't want to be admitting liability through paying damages.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering if there's any flexibility to give her any kind of monetary compensation, given that she's in a squeeze, as she's alluded to, that's not attached to liability.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it makes us exempt from any sort of admission of mistreatment, then we can possibly work out some sort of monetary, like a settlement package or something I'm forgetting what the term is. Severance, exactly.
Yes.
And we can make that work as long as it's not under the terms of us apologizing.
That's great. I think it's a common point of interest. Okay, so if you feel like you've expressed your needs and wants sufficiently, we'll invite Jackie to come back in and to continue the discussion for the remainder of the time. So I think at this time we have about 5 minutes left. So, I think that we've really located some common interests, and I do see an agreement working out that would be beneficial for both of you to save time and stress in a court proceeding. So just before we continue, would you be willing to meet again and continue this discussion for another maybe period of around the same time, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe a couple weeks from now. If you're available, our people from our clinic can set that up for you.
I actually have to check whether I can cover it financially. I don't have the available funds.
I understand.
I don't have the backing of a dance innovation behind me, so I really don't know. I have to check what I have in terms of liquid cash.
We can see if there are services in the community that are available to provide free mediators and be in contact with you about those possibilities. For now, the question is, would you be willing to reconvene to continue this conversation to see if a settlement is possible?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So we'll have people.
Yeah, we will reach out to you about details to hash out the times of your availability, and likely a couple of weeks from now.
So at this time, do we have your permission for both of you to discuss some of the items that we think are overlapping between your interests and try to work out a few terms of that agreement?
Discuss it with who?
Everyone in the room.
Now? Oh,
Right.
I thought that we had concluded. You said that it
Oh, that was just so
To
that
make
we don't
sure
run
we
out of
don't
time.
go over
Okay.
time. But in just the remaining few minutes, maybe we can brainstorm a little bit about ideas for the agreement.
Maybe I'll write it and you can.
So it sounds like there is some common interest in terms of making sure that the creative work is produced at a quality that satisfies both of you. Jackie, I know you've been concerned about the financial impact of what has happened, and Mickey, you're also concerned about the financial situation of the company as well, in terms of how the situation has impacted. So, either of you have any ideas about what kind of agreement we can reach to address those concerns?
So I know that Mickey had mentioned a severance package without any admission of liability. Jackie, how do you feel about that?
As I mentioned, I'm not interested in public shaming. I have no reason for him to accept public liability. What I did mention to you is that I do want a very, very firm letter of apology.
Mm-hmm.
And that would cover the liability from my point of view. I'm not doing what has been done to me, which is publicly, bringing shame to him or to the company. Mm-hmm. As long as I'm compensated sufficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So I'm hearing, a severance package like the one that Mickey would agree to or would consider would work for both of you. Mickey, how do you feel about issuing an apology letter that would be kept strictly confidential to Jackie?
As long as it's confidential, I think we can. I think that's feasible.
Are there any other terms, keeping in mind that we'll have more time for discussion, that either of you would like to add at this time?
Specific to finances or in general?
Specific to finances or in general.
Well, as I mentioned, I need a very, very strong letter of recommendation.
Right. So we want to bring up those terms. Mickey, how do you feel about a very specific letter of recommendation?
I think that's also okay with us.
and Jackie, you also mentioned earlier that you would like to see benefits under your contract reinstated.
Right. Well, I'm assuming that when you say severance package,
Yes.
that would include, X, Y, and Z.
Right. So, Mickey, do you feel like that would be also possible within that severance package?
I think that's something more detailed that we'd have to look into.
Right.
I was thinking more lump sum, but I guess we can talk about it and open to the conversation.
Right. Okay. Session. Okay.
And is there, there are provisions that both of you have brought up, but I think these are the overlapping elements. So how do you both feel about what's been, established so far?
Well, each of these things has to be looked at in a little bit more specifically, but yes, overall it's fine.
Okay. So I think we have the framework for what looks to be a good settlement. And I think that's a good place to end our conversation for today, unless there's anything you would like to add to this framework. And I know, Jackie, time is important to you. You mentioned 2 weeks, so maybe we can plan something sooner than that to accommodate that.
Yes, because as I said, on the wall it looks nice, but there's really nothing specific in there. Because a letter of reference can be, from one end of the spectrum to another. Same with a letter of apology, and most importantly, a severance package. You're talking about a very, very big discrepancy potential between what one person might offer and what the other person will take.
Absolutely understood. We want to take the time to devote to each of those items as they deserve. But we don't want to rush you, and we've found in our experience that these agreements work best if you agree to all of those specific terms so that you're not returning to the situation. So we want to devote that time at the next session. And, we want to emphasize you've made great progress to resolving this without involving courts or lawyers, and we'd like to continue progressing at the next session.
Okay.
So so at the next session, hopefully we can hash out further details to this framework, and in that time you can also think more about the details that you'd like to see.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
attending.
so much.
Appreciate it.